So I don't know if I'm gonna be able to put this into words that make any sense, but I'm gonna try my damnedest. I have been thinking about this for quite a while, and it's not always an active thought, but it's definitely something that tinges, you could say, the way that I look at the world. And the best way I can think about it is like deconstruction. I look at any era, any time, about anything. So, I don't know, 18th century France, you know, like when I'm thinking about a specific thing, if I'm doing research or I'm studying or whatever, I'm learning about history, England in the 1700s or something, I can't help but think, like, how did that all come to be? What affected that, right? It's a common thought. You think, well, what led to this turmoil in this time? This economic boom or this cultural change or expansion, you know? So it makes you want to kind of go back and keep looking. So if you are looking at the history of America, eventually you're going to get to the point where or North America, you get to the point where you're going to see colonialization. And you're like, well, then how did that come to be? And you get to the point, the Puritans in England, well, then how did that come to be, right? That's like a thought that always comes to me all the time. I want to keep going. But there's something inside of that. Something interesting that I'm like, it's very, man, this is what I'm talking about. It's going to be hard to like put the shit into words. But it's very closed. Every event in history, everything that we do as human beings is all predicated upon what had happened before. What we seek to do with ourselves was determined by an action in the past. Famous, huge one, World War II, from the German perspective, that was predicated by World War I. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, things don't just go, then that just happened. Like, no, there's reasons for it. There's a million of them, right? That shit that was going on in the 60s with black people, activism and equal rights and all that shit, has led to the point of where we are now, right? It doesn't just fucking happen. Why did that happen? Well, you talk about slavery, and you talk about, well, why did that happen? And you know what I'm saying? Like, everything happens for a reason, and they happen in their own due time, and there's, what is it, action and reaction? That's the famous idea. Okay, so that's kind of very vaguely the mindset I want you to be in. Just keep in mind that shit happens because something happened before that. That's all I'm trying to say. Kind of be in that mindset for this weird road we're about to go down. Inside of that concept, I can't help but see, as I was saying, this little closed circle. Do you remember in the last video when I was saying that, fuck, when we think of culture, it's really kind of just a mind idea. We're just agreeing to it, and we think it's just this thing that's supposed to be. Remember, like you having a cell phone, us having roads and cars, creation of buildings, air conditioning, heat in the wintertime, supermarkets for all your food. Like, we just take that for granted. That's just a concept that we live inside. But the minute you take yourself out of it, you realize, holy shit, that was like a made up mind. That wasn't really real. It's real in the sense that there's a tangibility to it, there's repercussions to it, and there's advancements. You know, if you go and be one of those snazzy people that gets into real estate and fucks other people over, flips houses, you know, slumlord shit, there are benefits to that. If you get into business, which I don't like those people either, and you can manipulate your way to the top standing on other people, you know, there are benefits to this society. It's created, and then there's ways of advancing through it. But that's not real. Like, I know it is real because you can do it, but it's not real. It doesn't exist. It's just made up. We're just agreeing that it's a thing that's happening. Same with like electricity. Like that's a real tangible thing. That's harnessed power that exists. But it's not really real, because if we just stop doing it, or if all humans just vanish, eventually it won't work anymore because of the way we know how to harness it. In those like nuclear fucking facilities or those other ones. Like that has to be run by people to make it work the way we want it to work. And that's what I mean. It's synthetic. Everything we do is synthetic. Even, I mean, not so much anymore because we make things out of fake material, but like even this old wooden oak desk that I have. Well, it's real wood. Yeah, but it's synthetic. That doesn't naturally form into a roll-top desk from the fucking ground. Like someone had to shape this thing out of multiple parts of a tree or other trees. Nothing we do is real. Everything we do is fake. And inside of that idea, I'm mind blown about it. Because you can choose not to. So those are physical things, okay? This is where it gets tricky. This is where I'm kind of like, I have a really hard time. Now let's talk about non-real things like politics and choices that a human being can make. Whether that's with their sexuality or whether that's with the culture that they come from and then the customs that they have. To anything that you can choose. I choose not to do things or choose to do them. That's where I'm like, man, that's fucking weird. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people think that, like, democracy is this God-given thing. You know what and it's not. It's just some made-up idea that we just pretend means something. And we agreed to the lie. It's not real. Nothing ever was. But yet we continue to go down the road and give it life. We create ideas and say, like, you know, we're supposed to worship the flag, and we're supposed to honor those that have fought the wars that mean nothing, and we're supposed to pay our taxes so that we can fund shit that we don't know about. And you notice I'm giving it a darker tinge because that's what I see. And I know there are benefits to it, but my point is, none of that's fucking real. It doesn't exist. We just make it exist in our idea bubble, our little concept thought that we live inside. That's what I was trying to tell you about living inside the mind of some being. Remember my mythology? I said it's all existing inside the mind of Gilgamesh. Our whole society, our whole civilization, every culture, at least from the West, if you will. That's all existing inside of it. And it has swallowed up other cultures. Like, look at the Japanese, man. They act like they're Americans half the time. When you look at their history, you see a hard turn. All of a sudden, they're wearing suits and shit. And, you know what I mean? It's a real hard turn from their original past. And it absorbs like that. The dream grows and grabs onto things. That concept, that idea to me is saying, as I've said in the last video, Gilgamesh represents civilization. He represents the king of kings, the man that comes and rules over Ur and Uruk, and I think he was the king of Uruk, actually. And that idea is a birth of civilization as we understand it, and all that it stands for: safety and food and ease and living, not having to worry about an animal coming and dragging you out of your house or some crazy shit. It's just like an idea that doesn't really exist. So that's the kind of shit that's been like really fucking with me, because I'm like, man, when I keep looking at the world that we have, I keep looking at how it all came to be, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way it should be. We've committed to the world that we live in. For instance, even the way that we see. So I'm reading the Odyssey, and I'm planning to really dive into Apollonius of Rhodes' is it Argonautica, I think is what it's called. But the Golden Fleece, when Jason and the Argonauts went to get the Golden Fleece for King Pelias or whatever. Okay, what do those two things have in common? They're about an adventure, an odyssey. And in some sense, we see that as such. Well, to go on a ship and to go on to an odyssey into a new place has really tinged the way we look at our world around us, or how we enjoy our, what would you say, our adventure stories. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing, because, okay, so the Greeks had to do that because of why? Because Greece is a bunch of fucking islands. Like, that's how they had to get around. And so that idea that was a natural concept for their people carries this weight that forevermore tinges the way we look at our world. I don't know about you, but I live in a landlocked area. Like, I know I'm in Michigan, so I'm surrounded by these big lakes, but I've only seen one of them one time. Do you know what I mean? Or a few times. So it's not like it's a big part of my life, water and shit. Like, I don't really like water, and I try to stay the fuck away from it. An adventure to me is in the mind. You know, if I'm going on an adventure. An outward adventure is a waste of time, it seems like. So it's just kind of affected the way I see the world. But then I just think of all things when it comes to the Greek culture. Like when you think of the doctor, I think his name was Hippocrates. Let's just say, you know, the Hippocratical Oath. Or remember I told you about mentor? That was an actual living person in a story, but mentor to us means something now. Like archetypal thoughts from the past have created a concept in and of themselves and are now verbs. They're now like they're a thing. They're not a fucking subject. It's now a verb. We do that a lot, and I think it's like a born concept dying to the egregore that is our modern society, in which encompasses everything. I know this is a bit of a ramble of an episode, but this is stream of consciousness. This is just how it's got to be. So, I don't know. I can't help but just always feel that way and see all these things moving around. That everything's affected from one another. And it's pervasive to everything. So like when people talk about Christianity, and it means a lot to a lot of people. You know, Christianity does. I can't help but see all the things that influenced it. Like, what is it? Archimedes, I'm sorry. Artemis, the goddess, how she influenced Mother Mary, you know, the Virgin Mary. How Mithras, I believe, Mithras worship, and Dionysian stuff kind of influenced what Jesus was and what he was doing. Like, but people don't want to see that. They want to like, no, fuck all that shit. This is what Christianity, that's the thing that's it. They can't see these things. Or like the Jews when they copied Zoroastrianism and Greek concepts, and they stole all those little things and put it in their little sphere, and all of a sudden Judaism exists. Like, people don't want to see that. They want to have that blind eye towards what they believe is truth. And it's hard to show people all these things. Like, dude, this world isn't what you think it is. I know you really want it to be this simple idea that there is this good and that there is an evil, that there is the devil and Jesus, and that you must make a choice, and here's a simple way to do it. You just follow these tenets, and through that, you'll be allowed to go to the kingdom of heaven, which seems to be what the big three, if you will, really believe. And there's a morality, which is very simple. There is what you can and cannot do, which is very simple. It's a very strange way to think of the world. Like, it's so much so that me saying this, those kind of people won't even understand what the hell I'm driving at. Like, what are you talking about? It is that way. And they'll have all this proof or all these ideas that in their mind makes so much sense, but because they're so trapped in the egregore that they can't see that it doesn't make fucking sense. Whether that's their faith, their culture, or their country, let's say. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Everything is, this is why I mentioned it. And this all comes back. So like when I'm questioning modern Christianity, I had to say, well, that's because of this, which is because of that, which what about, and I kept going back. And because I was doing that, I was unraveling the mystery of it. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, it's just an idea of man again. Some fucking thing. That he looked around and he said, like, these things are great. What if we like amalgamate them into one idea? Maybe they had good intent. Maybe they had the best intent, but that doesn't take away the fact that it's just this man-made concept. And it made me feel like, oh, that's fucked up. That's what this is about. That's what religion is. Man, that sucks. From that to culture, to race. And I started realizing this is just a bunch of fucking bullshit people tell themselves to make themselves feel better. Two things. You ever notice no one's ever wrong about their opinions? Right? You know, if they tell you like, well, I studied this and I know the facts and everyone agrees. Isn't it funny how they're always on that side? You know, that's kind of weird. You have that. And then you have the idea that's like, okay, I'll put it simply. When people believe something, it's right. The more people that believe it, it's the most right of right. There's how many billions of people that are, let's say, Christian? Well, that must mean it's right, right? Surely, there's nothing else about it. Let's ignore how many denominations there are. Let's ignore all the fucking conflicting things in history. Let's just ignore the entire history of Christianity and all the things it's done, for good or for bad. It's right, because that's what it is. Because Jesus said so, you know, or whoever, I don't know, Paul. And to me, I'm like, man, people really just want simplicity. When you look around you and you start unraveling the world, you know, from why we build towers and fucking giant, let's face it, they're mostly just economic buildings in cities. Why do we do that? When you unravel everything, you just realize it's just some fucking bullshit of man. Some concept, some thing, some immortality seeking, some... It's not real. And it's frustrating to be inside of that. It's super frustrating. Because it's like, for me, because I'm not a concise person, so I feel these things, but I'm not going to be the person to sit down and construct this fucking essay about it to convince you. Because that's just not my mind. And that's not what I enjoy. I don't want to hear that myself, so why would I do it? So for me, it's like, I can't really convince you to any of these thoughts that I have at all. Which, again, not really my point. But I can't help but feeling this way. Of just swirling around in all the bullshit. And feeling the world around me just sinking more and more into depravity and more into their modern ritual belief systems and the like. Like, I just feel, I know that the sentiment "I wasn't made for these times" has been echoed in the past, and there's a lot of people that feel that way. And I'm not necessarily saying I don't feel like I'm meant for these times. But I just feel like I can't understand why people choose to be the way that they are. And it's okay to say it's because people are scared, people are simple, and they need simple things to distract them. Okay, I know, I understand. But to me, what's very irritating is the fact that they will not see that it is that. That they would rather convince themselves of a truth or a purpose or a reason. Like, a lie is so easy to go down because there's no such thing as this ultimate truth. You can create anything you want if you believe it enough. You can have this manifest destiny of your own mind. You can have this cultural equivalent to enlightenment or your race or some shit. You can have all these ideas and find a reason to say that this is right because of a morality concept. This is right because it's about peace and justice. Okay? That's cute, you know? That people believe that shit. And that's amazing, the things that we can do with our minds to really commit to the things that we think matter. What we never do is say justice and peace to whom? And to what? And why? That's where things get a little tricky. You know what I'm saying? This is what I'm talking about. Like, it's hard to unsee all these things that I'm talking about. It's hard to go like, yeah, you know, you just ignore all that and you continue to go down the lie. You know, not a big deal. I could, in theory, do that with ease, if you will. But I don't want to live a lie. Just because I notice something and I think it's fucked up doesn't mean I should go, well, then don't think that. Learn about it in the way that we want you to inside the bubble. Basically be indoctrinated. And then you'll accept it. You'll be like, this is great, you know? You should never fully immerse yourself into something to learn about it. Because that's how you can get entangled with it. It's like ivy on a tree. If you don't know a lot about trees, you would think it's part of the tree. But ivy's not. It's its own fucking thing growing upon it. And I always wear this, I'm not wearing it right now, but I always wear this necklace with ivy on it. And it's got the Ogham Court, Gort. Like a letter of the alphabet. And that represents this idea of ivy having to remember, as you wear this pendant, to not become part of the things around you, but not to kill them either. You know, like it's a yin-yang kind of idea. Living amongst things, but not being of things. And that's the way that I think you should be as a person. You should be very wary of the kind of shit that people do. And if there are, let's say, a group, you know, religion's the biggest one because that's the easiest one to talk about. If there's like a group of these Protestants, let's say, right down your road, and they really convince you to be inside of it, you should never make your decisions while you're in it. Because everything around you is designed to say that this is the best. What fucking group is ever created like, yeah, and while you're in here, we're going to convince you every way you shouldn't do this. Do you know what I mean? Not many groups do that. They'll tell you that this is the right way, this is the best way, this is good for you, good for the community or whatever. Because that's how people are. And you have to be wary of that. So you always have to look outside of things. And I call it giving a third perspective or being outside the bubble, zooming out. Don't be a human for a minute. Look at it objectively as if you're an alien studying another race or some shit. Like that's kind of how I try to approach those ideas as a metaphor. But in the sense, it's true. It's like look at life and wonder to yourself, is this right for me? That's it. But you must understand you will always be entering into something lesser than yourself. I know that's really hard to see. I totally can understand why someone would feel that way. Because you would think, it's bigger than myself. There's people inside of this. And I can understand why you would think that. That's okay. There's nothing wrong in thinking that. It's just you're bigger than you think you are, is what I mean to say. Sorry if this is all jumbly, but if you've been here long enough, you know that's how the game is. I can't help but feel like this, to see the world this way, and to notice life as it happens around me. and to separate myself from it fully has given me the insight to always try to help people not get caught up in the minutia of ideas or limiting themselves because, like, oh, I can't think like that. I'm a Muslim. I can't think like that. I can't do these things. I'm Jewish. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's limiting yourself. Here's one that's really common that a lot of people do. Having a type when you're dating or you're into the opposite sex or the same sex, whatever. I have a type. I have a type physically. That's limiting you to meeting better people. Do you know what I'm saying? You're going to wait for the one person that's the carbon copy of another physically until you find the right one. Like, that's going to take you way longer. What if you open yourself up and realize that you can find that in any person if you're willing to care about them? Regardless of whatever the features are that you're not necessarily into, or fucking height, or whatever the hell people are picky about. If you broaden your horizon, you find more beauty, right? That's a super simple one. Think of that with, your faith. Think of that with your intellect, with what you think matters in the world. Broaden your horizon and find the beauty not only in the things that you care about, but the things you don't. Because in doing that, it'll teach you so much more, and it'll allow you to get out of these little mindsets. I'm a Jew. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm a human being. I don't have to be that thing that tethers me down to a concept. Or a Hindu or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, whatever the fucking thing it is. I think that's what people tend to forget about. And that's what I've noticed when I talk about looking at an event and wondering how it all came to be. That's what it led me to realize, is it's all these ideas that we create, all these concepts and these ways that we get stuck into a belief system. Or my culture won't let me do that. I can't date a person of a different color than me. Or, I don't know, man. You goddamn name it. We don't like the Chinese because we are Japanese or something, you know what I mean? In a certain era and time, like, that's what I'm talking about. You can't do these things because it just makes you just focus in and become part of this evil concept. Because no matter how much good you try to do in your little concept, you're equally as evil when it does the evil acts. If you're a Catholic, let's say, you're just as good as the things that Jesus said, but you're just as bad as all the crusades and all the genocide and all the death for no fucking reason. You know what I mean? You must accept both. You can't just say this is the best and the right. You have to accept that you are not any better than the worst thing you've ever done. And you never will be. But if you allow yourself out of these concepts, you can realize you're a free human being that is willing to make mistakes and choose wrong things and do wrong things. But you're also capable of helping people you don't even know. Yes, you've done some bad things, but guess what? You went out of your way to help that person yesterday for no fucking reason. You can accept that part of yourself. You don't have to be tied down to the tenets or the rules or the guidelines or God knows whatever else that this idea is. Because the biggest thing is to focus on is, at the end of the day, it's all thought forms. It's all just idea concepts that people live inside and give life to. And it grows and grows and grows and becomes something that's inevitable, inalienable, or unstoppable. It's just existence. It's so a part of it that we forget that it's outside of it. Like I was saying earlier. The world that we exist in. The idea that I live in a mobile home, well, that's lesser. See, it's not a real house. You don't live in a real house. So that's some kind of weird societal thing that some people believe. I don't drive a brand new vehicle. There are some people that think that matters. I don't work out. There are some people who think that matters. This is the idea I was talking about. These are thought forms that people exist inside. from that to, you know, the job that I have. That matters to some people. And we all participate inside of something called civilization, which is a great thing, but it's also not. It's not the most right of the right. Doesn't mean it has to be, but we agree that it is, so that's what it is. We don't even question it. We don't even question it so much that people go to a grocery store, which should be like, you should be fucking thankful that that even exists. And some people have the audacity to bitch that there's not one thing in there out of the millions surrounding them. Like, you didn't have that one brand of spaghetti? Fuck this, I'm out of here. Like, you should be fucking thankful that it exists. That is like luxury. You can just walk into an entire building safely. No one will harm you. And you are allowed to pick up things that don't really need to exist, but do because of, oh, we love food, so I'm going to have my cheese and onion flavored fucking crackers, and I'm going to get my meat that's cut and killed for me and done all that. That is a luxury. The fact that some people bitch is like they lost the plot. Like, this is astounding. I'm allowed to exist in this room here safely. I don't have to kind of look out when I go drive down the road for bandits and marauders and shit on the fucking highway. You know? We have this society around us that creates the sense of safety. If I get an infection, I can go to the hospital and get like antibiotics right then and there. I should be fucking thankful that that exists. There are millions of people that have died in the past from fevers. And like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that's just an idea thing. That doesn't all have to exist, but we think it's like, that's just how it is. That's natural. It should be there. It's God-given. No, it's not. Because if it wasn't, animals would be able to have the same benefit. So it's not fucking God-given. You know? Thinking in those terms allows you to see outside of the thoughts and the egregores and the concepts that exist that we take for granted. But at the end of the day, it's all created in the mind of a man or a group of men. And when I say that, I mean, you know, like mankind, not like gender. So I should say in group inside of people. It exists in people's minds. And for whatever reason, that means it exists outside of their minds. And I'm thinking, that's not 100% true. But a lot of people can't see it like that in their lives. And we've limited ourselves to what anything is. What any experience is. If it's not, if what I say to you isn't what you believe inside your thing, well then that's crazy. I'll give you one thing before I go. Since this is a full stream of consciousness session, let's fucking commit and go off topic a little bit, but come back around. The other day, me and my wife we went to an antique store. And I was looking at like old books, getting upset by how they're not being taken care of. And I was like looking at them like, man, what a pity. What a fucking pity. How much knowledge will be lost here? And my wife was like, come here, I want to show you this little statuette that I found. And I was like, okay. So went around the corner and there's this goddess woman. She's kind of sitting very beautifully. I don't know how to explain it. Like just kind of very feminine the way she was sitting, you know? Made of bronze and about like that big, you know. And she's a, look at that. I don't know. I feel really like I feel like drawn to that. So she picked it up and flipped it over, and on the bottom, someone wrote, "It's the goddess Diana." And I remember exactly how, but she's like, "Who's Diana?" And I was like, you know, when I was reading in Geoffrey Monmouth's story, it was Brutus who was a ancestor of the guy who survived the Trojan War. His grandson or something. He was going off with people that he freed to a new land. Brutus was. And on the way, he stopped at a little island. And on the island that they worship to the goddess Diana. I always want to say Diana. Don't know why. And she told him, because he went there, he did the right offerings to the statue, and then she came to him in a dream and said, oh, you know, this is the land, spoiler alert, it was Britain, and you'll go there, there's going to be giants, you have to defeat them. And I told her that, I'm like, that's what I remember by Diana, but I was like, who is the Greek equivalent? And I couldn't remember the name exactly. It's one of those things where as soon as you want to remember the name, you can't. It's like, God damn it. And it was Artemis, the goddess Artemis. Remember, her and her twin brother Apollo were born of, what, Leto and Zeus. And they're the twins. And she stands for kind of the hunt. Sometimes people say like liminal places, you know, like the darkness of guarding of the forest and that kind of earthly concept and all that. And it just dawned on me, like, wait a minute. Because there was a story that Artemis was mad at Agamemnon because he killed one of her favorite deer. In order to pay the penance before going off to Troy, he had to sacrifice his daughter. And I know, to you, you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Okay. It just fucking hit me. Some time back, I made a video on here called A Prophetic Dream. Just go and watch that maybe after this to get the full effect. And then I'll tell you about this real quick, and then I'll tell you why I'm telling you about it. I had this very crazy dream where I had to fight this deer shapeshifter guy. And I won and fought, and there was an entity that was very pleased that I did it. And then it kind of occurred to me, because if you remember, I don't remember if I said in that video or the next one, a few nights later I was visited by a female entity who at first I thought, oh, she just reminded me of the Virgin Mary, because I didn't have a whole lot of context to my world. So I thought, oh, that's the Virgin Mary. I swear to God, she was fucking there in the room with me. And I was so ashamed to look at her. Now, I'll mention two things with that. One, I did not know at the time that the Virgin Mary, kind of her concept, was taken from Artemis. Artemis is a virgin. Now, I can't get into the specifics because I don't necessarily know, but I know that a lot of the concepts they took with Virgin Mary, they kind of took from her. And I was like, that's why I thought it was her. You know, I had no other cultural context to it. And then there's this, and I talked about it in a few videos. I've always felt I had a guide. If you're Christian, it would be a guardian angel. If you are not Christian, and maybe in the esoteric world, you could say a personal daemon. I see it as a guide. I just see it as this entity that's guiding me from another realm. And I know it's a woman. It's because her fucking voice, I can tell. I told you about the time that I remember when I was meditating, she told me I was the conduit. A fucking woman's voice told me that. And from that point, every time I'm doing something, I feel like this feminine force is guiding me. And that's when it all clicked. Because once, I think a couple of videos ago, I was like, I don't know her name, but I feel it. And then it dawned on me. Artemis. In some ways, she's been combined with Hecate, which is like a woman of liminal areas too. The crossroads, Hecate is. That's how I pronounce it. And they've been combined in the past. Artemis, Hecate, they've been kind of created into one being, and this is like a threshold guardian, if you will, from one sense to another, a crossroads place. And if you will eventually see in all my work, there are so many fucking crossroads in my work. It's insane how many times the character comes to another motherfucking crossroads. And it dawned on me, this is the figure, whatever she embodies, Artemis, Hecate, Virgin Mary, you know, whatever they truly embody, the real woman, that's who's been guiding me this whole time. Now, why did I mention all that? Because in some people's spheres they say, that's crazy. Because that doesn't make sense to my scientific mindset or my Christian mindset or my Muslim or whatever you are. That was an experience that I had, that there are people, because they're in their concept so deep, they'll say, fucking, that guy's crazy. That is not how that works. He's devil worshipping, or he's hallucinating, because, you know, if you have a scientific mind. Whatever your idea is, my point in mentioning all that was my real life experience that doesn't tie into some other people's, and I'm sure they'll see it that way and deny it because of that. Because that's what people fucking do. Myself, if you have an experience inside of a thought form, I'll say that's interesting. But if you tell me that you're on the path by yourself, you're not a religious person, you're not necessarily scientific, you're just a human being, and you have a crazy experience, to me that's fucking gospel, if you want to use that word. And I say, well, then you must follow it, because you are outside of the thought form and you are free. It is time for you to discover what that means. There's something about traveling the road alone. They call it the left-hand path, where you're just on your own. You don't have the safety net of a religion or a concept of some descript, and you're off by yourself. And I think that is where truth will lie more than anything else. But anyway, I'll let you go, and we'll end it from here. Probably not the most concise video, but whatever. Here we go. We'll send it. Get it out of the way. Anyway, until next time.